There
There.
you are. Hi. Hi, Brian.
How are you?
Good. I'm Deb, by the way. This is the first time we're virtually meeting,
Right.
talking. So, hi, how are you?
I am good. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, thanks for doing this. So, I was just talking a little bit about astrology and what we're even looking at before we get into reading your chart. This is your chart behind me without the crazy lines in the middle, which are called aspects. Those aren't on yet.
Okay.
But hey, let's talk about you for a little bit and let's get some more information about what's going on with you. And then we're going to talk about your chart. And I've already seen things in your chart that totally go along with with your songs and your music. And
Oh,
honestly, you should be doing this. This is what you should be doing, is doing
uh,
something with music. So I'm so happy for you and I'm so glad. So
oh,
please tell
good.
us more about what's going on.
That's a relief because sometimes I'm not sure. So I appreciate the validation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wait, I'm pulling up my chart. You sent it to me, right?
Yeah, that PDF that I have. Yeah.
Okay.
So it breaks it down for you, which is nice.
Okay, I'm ready. What was your question?
Okay. So when you're doing country music now,
Yeah.
and when does your new album is coming out? When? Like
I have a
in a
song
day or
coming out
two?
Friday. Yes, I have a song coming out Friday, just before
Okay.
the it's called Just a Phase, and we're releasing it just before the new moon on Saturday because
Nice.
I thought that was fun. And the song mentions the moon, and so I'm really playing up the astrology element when releasing it.
Well, that's interesting. That's really cool because I actually looked at your moon because just out of curiosity, right? I
Uh-huh.
believe you were born on a waxing gib or waning gibbous. So it's closing. Waning is closing, waxing is adding, right? So it's in between. And it makes you very creative and imaginative, that phase, if you're born in that phase. So that already really matches you a lot. So that's cool. So make sure, and where can you go and get the new song? You can pre-download it on Spotify, right?
It'll be literally available anywhere you stream music, so no excuses, people. No, just kidding. And then
That's right. No.
there is a pre-save option on Spotify. The link is in my bio.
Okay.
So definitely go check that out. It's like a 90s country breakup song. I think people would like it. If you've ever been in a relationship and afterwards you're like, you feel like your experience didn't match the other person's experience or your experience was
Yeah.
invalidated. I feel like a lot of us can like resonate with that. This song I think will resonate with you if you've had that experience.
Absolutely. And with country music in general, there's like this old joke of like if you play a country song backwards, you get your house, your dog, your partner back, you know? So totally it's along that line. And I love the same old country love song, but it's gay. It's awesome. I love that song. So and for those of you who may reckon you're like, where do I know him from? Because your pronouns are he, him, by the way. Um, maybe if he told you that you were tacky, you would know. but but no, I mean, you still look the same. Honestly, let's be real. You just have a little more facial hair.
Hmm.
Billy grew up a little bit now.
I just look a little more tired, honestly.
Aren't we all? That's
Yeah.
called that panini that happened. So let's talk about your chart, okay? And then
Okay.
we'll run through that stuff again because I want everybody to catch it at the end as well,
Okay.
where to get it. But make sure you go to Brian's page and you're following him, and you get ready to download the new song. Comes out on Friday, okay? All right, folks. So behind me, you can see this round chart. This is Brian's chart, all right? And really, a lot of people are used to looking at the words and saying, okay, my son is in this, and it can be confusing, just the words on a page, let alone this thing, right? Well, this and what Queerstrology does different than other astrologers is I'm very research based. So I go for factual information, which is hard when people call it a pseudoscience, but it is based in science. That's where it came from, astronomy and all those things. So all these things represent the sky at the time that you were born. Now you can have other charts that represent other things, but this particular chart was your birth chart. So this is a snapshot of the sky, right? But what are we looking at? Well, these are the constellations, the signs, like what we think about when we're reading about a sign in general. Like, oh, that's that personality. That's what these mean. And everybody has all 12. Okay. So, like I was saying earlier, if you're hating on a certain sign for a reason, you might want to look in your own chart and see what's going on there. Okay. Now, that being said, in the middle here, we have these 1 through 12. So, if you know the time of your birth, that's what helps us decide your housing system. Okay. And I'll explain that in a moment. But these are the houses, and the houses represent a part of your life. So, you can see each of the little slices of pie is showing us a part of Brian's life. And we're going to go through all of these as we go around. Now, these little things right here, these are focus points, right? But they're astral bodies. There's thousands of them. We're just talking about the biggest ones in our solar system because they tend to affect us the most, right? So these are focus points. They bring focus. So we'll have the personality of the sign that they're under and the part of their life. All right? I hope that helps everybody kind of get an understanding. And at the end, we're going to talk about aspects, which are the lines that are going through the middle, because they show us relationships. In this case, your internal relationships and which part of your focuses get along or may be in conflict with each other. Okay?
Mm.
So I know that was a lot, folks, but bear with me because I want to get you onto the same page with us, including you, Brian.
Yeah.
All right, so the fun part here is when we look here, you can see how 1 starts here and it goes all the way around to 12. Well, if you follow this line out, you'll see something called ASC. That stands for your ascendant or your rising sign, okay? Every single person's chart starts right there. That's where everybody's chart is. The difference is what is your rising sign, right? So for Brian, it happens to be in Virgo. You can see that Virgo is right here and the ascendant is on that line. What it means is that was the constellation that was on the eastern horizon at the moment that you were born.
Okay.
That's what your rising sign is. It changes every 2 hours. So that's why we need to know the birth time, right? And your location. So that starts your housing system. And this is not only the ruler of your first house, which is the house of self, okay? But it's also the ruler of your entire chart, which means you're also ruled by the planet of Virgo, which is Mercury. So even though you are a Pisces, right? You're not ruled by Neptune, you're actually ruled by Mercury, which is a communication planet, a lot of internal communication for Virgo. All right. Now, this is also what we talk about your rising sign being is your reflection, right? Your first impression on what you think of other people and also what they think of you. So when people meet you, they may get this impression that you're very put together, you're into the details, you've got lists for things, right? Now, once they get to know you, your sun sign is literally the opposite, right? So you don't want to have to worry about the details so much. Once you get to know somebody and you feel more comfortable with them, they get to see that part of you. Otherwise, they see the organized part of you. And how you approach things at first is wanting to be very practical, right? So when you're first coming on to something, because this is the first house of self, like I was saying before, it reflects on you personally. So you will look at this and be like, especially with Virgos, you're a little bit self-critical, right? You come after yourself a little. So ease up on yourself because we're also going to talk about the fact that you have Gemini as your MC up here. You have a lot of information coming in and it might be hard to organize all of it. You don't have to. So, all right, don't be so hard on yourself. It doesn't have to be perfect, is my point.
Okay.
Now, you're like, okay. Now, what's really interesting is now, even though Virgo rules this first house, you have other signs that have peeped in here. This is Libra right here, and there is your moon, okay? So the moon, it represents your emotion. Libra and the kind of association we have with Libra is it's looking for balance, okay? It's intelligent language again, so more communication, right? But the or the first house is still self. So again, you are very self emotional. You regulate your emotions. You try to find balance in that, right? You're always looking to find balance because sometimes you may want to be like, I want to be PO'd today. Like, I want to be pissed today. Is that fair? Is that, you'll kind of weigh the options and select a day that it's more okay for you to be upset. Kind of trying to find that happy balance to make you feel like you're okay. Because again, it's regulating your self emotions, okay? And finding a balance. Now, Libra happens to rule your second house. Now, how do we know what rules which house? We go these lines that I was showing you. Here's the second house's pieces of pie, right? So right here, where that first line, that lead line hits, is Libra, which means Libra rules your second house. And the second house is the things that you find value in, or your possessions. So again, you're looking for very balanced ideas of what should be let in. You want to weigh everything. You want to make sure you've seen both sides of it before you take it on as something that's valuable, right? You don't want to just scoop up anything. Sorry, go ahead.
No, totally. Yeah, I've done like human design stuff a little bit too. I don't know if you're into
Mm.
that as well. And I'm
It's over my head, to be honest with you.
I was told when I was doing that that I'm supposed to experience like all sides of something before proceeding with my response. So that sort of adds up with what you
Absolutely. Yeah, that totally makes sense because Libra wants to make sure it's being fair with the things that you're holding value for, you know? So that makes total sense. Now, when we go here to the third house, which is the house of communication, we can go down this line and we see that Scorpio is its ruler. So Scorpio is a water sign, right? And it's the emotional investigator, if you will. So don't ever lie to Scorpio placements, okay? Because they can read it. And for you, your like ability to emotionally read people comes from how they communicate and also how you communicate. So you may ask them an interesting investigative question to get the answer you're looking for to make sure you're getting the truth, you know?
My partner is a
Especially,
Scorpio.
there you go. So what's interesting is you have Pluto here, which is its ruler, right? So that's very native. And Pluto is a planet. It's one of the generational planets. It changes every 15 to 30 years, but it's not you. It's so it could be in the same sign as people around your age, but not necessarily in the same house. So that's why yours is the communication, and this is transformation. So this is a very intense transformation through the ways that you communicate.
Mm.
So if you think about it, like even from acting going into more centering on music, like that's still you communicating and you investigating your emotions and saying, what do I want to do, and how do I want to communicate out to the world in
Mm.
general? So honestly, having a partner that's a Scorpio can probably help you indicate and activate that a little more and be like, no, do what you want to do. Be honest with yourself and do what makes you happy. You
He's
know,
very encouraging, yeah.
that's good. That's perfect. So now when we go to the fourth house, you can go straight down right here, folks, and you'll see Sagittarius rules Brian's fourth house. Now, the fourth house is the house of home. Okay. So it's like your root or the base of where you've come from. Because when I say home, a lot of people imagine their house, and that's fine. And that could be it. But it's really like where you feel at home. It could be a mountaintop. It could be,
Nature.
somebody's old basement, like whatever makes you feel like, oh, I'm at home. So for you, you don't need to be in any one place. It's about your experiences because Sagittarius is the traveler. They're about learning new things and philosophies. So you want to bring that into your home. You want to go out and experience things and bring that back into your home life.
Mm.
But nothing that's BS. Like you want like good stuff that you've actually experienced,
Yeah.
um, because that's what Sagittarius's energy is. It's like if I don't know what's going on here, we're not dealing with it. I need to know what's happening first, and then we can explore that. Um, and also a lot of thing about Sagittarius placements for it being in your fourth. You may move a lot. It could indicate that as well,
Mm.
just because Sagittarians don't like to be stationary. They always are doing something, you
Yeah,
know.
that tracks. I actually wrote a blog piece once about how always feel like my mental health is at its best when I'm traveling. So that's interesting.
Yeah, I mean that makes sense because you probably feel comfortable or at home when you are traveling. That's rare for some people. They feel like when they're traveling, they can't possibly feel at ease
Totally.
because there's things going on at home. But you're like, it's fine at home. I'm traveling and I'm enjoying myself because everything is fine at home. I took care of it already. Um, Now, that being said, the two placements that you have in this house, in the fourth house of home, they're the other two generational planets because there's three total. There's Pluto, and then there is Uranus and Neptune. Okay. So Uranus and Neptune, they are both under the sign of Capricorn. Okay. So Capricorn is an earth sign, and they're about structure and initiation of structure. So at your home life, like how I was telling you, like when you go out and you experience these things and whatever you want to bring back to your home life or incorporate into your home life, there's a point to it. You have an ambition behind it, or you're trying to achieve something. And that's where Capricorn's energy comes in. The thing is, with Uranus there, it's not typical. It's not something that people would typically think that you would collect in your roots or your home life in order to achieve something. It's something a little different. That's the Uranus energy, because that's about rebellion and not doing things in a typical way at all, right? So your home life isn't going to be typical, and there's a reason for that. And then on top of that, you also have dreams of your home or your rooted situation, making you successful or using the energy of your home for your intuition. Like if something's going on at home, you feel it. Like you can feel it even before something's been said. Like if it's your partner or an animal or family, even in other parts of the world that you feel or you're connected to, you have this kind of intuition about it and the ability to make them feel comfortable. Usually it's about working for them to make them feel comfortable, not so much as comforting them, but like doing the stuff that they're too emotional to accomplish. That's kind of your thing, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Just in that particular area. Now, Capricorn rules your fifth house. Okay. So you can see right here, the fifth house, the lead line comes down, Capricorn rules it. Now, here we have a fifth house stellium. Okay. A stellium is when you have 3 or more points in the same house or the same sign. In this
Yes.
case, it's both.
It's
Yeah.
crowded over there. Yeah.
Yeah. So in this case, it's kind of both, because even though Capricorn rules your fifth house of creativity, so it means that you will go for achievements and ambitious in your kind of creativity. Now, what's interesting is the 3 placements that you have there in Aquarius. Aquarius is the alien of the zodiac, right? They work hard, but they're air signs, which sounds weird. I know, because they're a water bear, but they're an air sign, which means they have to do with intelligence, okay? But unique intelligence. So this you're having unique intelligence in your fifth house of creativity and pleasure, right? And so you have that extra focus from that stellium in there, altruistic thoughts, like you want to help the world, right? Through your creativity. And
Mm.
especially when we see the placements that are there, because the first one that you have here is Venus. Okay. So Venus is your surrendering energy or your vulnerability. So, in order, like your partner, I don't know, I don't want to speak, but they're probably fairly creative, right? Like there's some creativity there that's a little bit different than yours. It's something that's different that you wouldn't necessarily think about.
Cooking.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. There you go. Like that's the kind of thing you're like, I don't know what's going on there. I need some help in that particular area. Right.
Uh-huh.
But that makes you be able to be more vulnerable because he can take over that. Like he takes that off of your plate, pun intended. I don't know. But, but yeah, that's how you can feel like you can be more vulnerable with him when he does things like that for you. Because, you know, you're out here trying to do creative, fun things for the world, and if he's helping you like maintain your diet and make sure you're actually eating, that's helpful, right? You can't
Right.
create without being alive.
Absolutely. We have a good balance for sure.
Now at the same time, you also have Mars here. They're basically on top of each other in your chart, right? And Mars is your drive, what you want to be in control of. So you don't want him or anyone, not just your partner, but anyone to step on your toes when it comes to your unique creative process. Please don't mess with that. Right?
Yeah.
You're like, I have an idea. Let me go all the way through it first. Like, I'm driven to do this. Like, let me do it. Don't step on my toes. Right?
It's funny because I was just talking to my therapist about how I really struggle with working for other people. Like I need to have
Mm-hmm.
autonomy over my tasks. You know, I've never done well in like a job setting where like someone else is paying for what I'm doing.
Yep, because and when we get to your MC, we'll talk about that even more because it has to do with honestly being bored and not like it does. It's like I have things that I think about that I could be doing right now, and this job is holding me back, literally. So that's what it means. In fact, you also have Saturn here. Now, Saturn is the planet of restriction. So that's what I mean. It's also the planet of results. So in order to get the results you're looking for with your creativity, you got to think outside the box. That's what's going to work for you the best. That's why Saturn is there. It keeps you from going too far outside of the box because you still want to get results that you want. You don't want to be so out there that nobody is responding, but you
Mm.
want it to be different enough to get the results you're looking for, because that's what Saturn does there. It's giving you the results. You want unique and altruistic results from your creativity. That's what you're looking for.
Cool.
So, so that totally makes sense with the kind of music that you do and everything. Absolutely makes a whole lot of sense. It's country, but it's got the queer twist to it, which makes it like not your typical, especially country music genre in general for anybody, who's grown up through all of this stuff. I'm a little bit older than you, but even back then, like it's very certain kind of political things are seen within country music,
Totally.
right?
Yeah.
So like you are breaking boundaries that a lot of people wouldn't have the balls to do, so to speak. So good for you. And it should work for you because it's saying it should. It's saying that that's what you should be doing. But there is more. Don't forget that. Now, when we go, let's go to your sixth house, though, first, which is still ruled by Aquarius. So Aquarius is ruling your sixth house, which is your acts of service, how you like to be of service to people. So you're very unique in how you think about what you want to do for other people, but also very fun, active, like, oh, let's do this. Let's invite these other people too. Like you're kind of like the fun, the fun the fun person about when it comes to acts of routine. Probably like team oriented. Like, come on, everybody, let's do it together and get it done. That would be kind of your vibe. Now, that being said, the placements that you have, your Sun and Mercury, they're in the sign of Pisces. Okay. Now, Pisces is the oldest and wisest.
Ah,
Yes. They're the oldest of the signs. So, and that's why like they rule the 12th house as well. So like that's like you've gone through the physical forms of things, the feelings of things, all of that. And Pisces is about intuition and dreams. Like what are your like not goals, dreams, right? You can be grounded in certain things, but for Pisces, they don't want to be grounded because it's limiting to them.
mm.
Okay? So that's why in your acts of service, since both your Sun, which is your ego, your true self, that I was kind of telling you about before, you can come off as super fun and like intuitive, like stuff that everybody's like, how the hell did you know that? You're also very good at knowing what people need before they ask for it because of this it's in your sixth house of acts of service, right? And routines for that matter. Um, and the other part of it is Mercury, which is communication, helps you be able to communicate that. So you're like, I have a dream that all of us as a team can sell this album and make it go platinum. Like as a, and you
Yeah,
can communicate that and you're like, let's go team. Like you're a very good cheerleader when it comes to what needs to get done. You can
totally.
like, let's do this. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, whenever I'm doing a project, my favorite part is kind of like pulling in people's like different talents. Like, I'm not a photographer, but getting to find the best photographer to work with who's going to work well with this like graphic designer and like putting together a band. I love all that. And
Yes.
outside of music, I'm actually a life coach. So I'm curious, like, I feel like some of this plays into that too, just like being able to communicate with
Absolutely.
people's like inner dialogues, maybe before they've reached the clarity themselves, and yeah,
No, absolutely. That's absolutely part of it. I mean, and also the fact that your Pisces is ruling your seventh house, which is your relationships or
uh,
connections. So not just romantic, but like any kind of connection, work, family, friends, all of that, right? So you still have that intuitiveness when it comes to your relationships. Like you kind of have a gut instinct on if you're going to get along with somebody or not. And that again is not just romantic but in all kinds of ways, right? So when you are approaching any new connection, you're gonna like listen to your gut and you're gonna be like, what is my gut telling me? It doesn't mean you will always stay with it because maybe you've been wrong a couple of times, but for the most part you're like, my gut's telling me something. Listen to it. You are a freaking Pisces sun. That's already a fairly psychic placement as it is, you know.
okay.
Especially with Mercury there as well. That's psychic as well because your communication is about intuition as well. So, um, Now, that being said, when we go up to the, sorry, did you have a question?
No,
Did I
no.
miss you? Okay, no. And so when we go up here to the eighth house, so this is the eighth house right here, Aries, which is the baby of the zodiac, right? So Pisces is the oldest. Aries starts it. It's the baby. We all know they're like quick to act. They're on it. They're going. That's an Aries, right? So your eighth house is actually the house of the taboo. It's transformation, rebirth, death, sex. I have to say because we're on TikTok, but those sort of things. So you might be a little quick to jump into those things, but that doesn't mean that you won't have staying power, because if you see Taurus, which is the stayer of all stayers, is also in that relationship. So you're quick to jump in, but also quick to jump the heck out if it's not good for you, right?
Mm,
And at the same time, if you do, you can rely on that Taurus to give you some stability in those really valuable connections. That's kind of it's kind of a fun one to have in the eighth house there,
okay.
because um, when you're going through transformation, and a lot of it is very quick, right? You're like, I'm going to transform to this. It may not, again, always work out, but then when you find something that is really working for you, you have the ability to make it work.
Mm,
Taurus is about security and value and all of that, and it also rules your ninth house. And your ninth house is the house of experience, travel, philosophy, higher education. So if you are doing any of these things, you know that it's probably a long-term goal. Like, you set a goal of like, I want to know this by a certain amount of time. Like, you might not even have it, but you're like, I'm just going to keep working at it until I get to that goal, because I value it. I value knowing this information. I value having this information. So that's what Taurus ruling your ninth house can indicate for you. That when you are learning something new, you are very, sturdy and focused on getting that done when you need to. Now let's talk about the fun part.
okay.
Another fun part, I
This
should
has all
say.
been fun.
So how we always have this, which is the ascendant on the cusp of the first house, okay? On the cusp of the 10th house, everybody has something called the MC. It stands for medium coli. It's Latin for top of the sky.
Okay.
We also call it your midhaven, okay? So really what it is, it's the highest point of the sphere. So we kind of call it your point of ambition, if you will. And the 10th house, which follows it, is your achievements.
Okay.
So you have Gemini ruling it. So Gemini is the other sign that's ruled by Mercury. So remember how I told you Virgo is ruled by Mercury? There's
Mhm.
only two planets that have two signs that they rule. One's Mercury and one's Venus. So the difference, a lot of people would say feminine versus masculine. That's not the case. It's actually internal versus external. So while Virgo and your house of self, you're very critical of your internal communication and of yourself, right? But when it comes to your achievements, you have this amazing storyteller ability, because Geminis are the external communicators. They can tell stories. They have 8 books that they're reading. You might have, like, if you're reading any books at all, they're probably all about how to do achievement or how to be better at something.
I
And
only
you've read, 6 to 8 pages in, and now you're on to the next book.
Wow, that's like the most accurate thing you've said yet, because I read like 8 books at once and they're all to do with like self-help. But yeah, I'll read like a couple pages and I'll be like, let me try the next one. And then yeah.
Uh-huh.
So
Uh-huh.
interesting.
Because why? Geminis get bored easily as well.
Well, I do
Okay?
finish them. I just take a while. I go through 8 at once.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Honestly, it depends. Everybody has a Gemini section in their chart, right? So wherever it is usually where they have those 10 books that they're reading of that kind of subject matter. It's pretty interesting. Because, like, I like to say, Geminis have this energy of like, hey, how does a gas stove work? And you show them, oh, you just turn it, it clicks, there's a little pilot light, comes on, whatever. And then the next day you see that Gemini on social media giving a TED talk on how a gas stove works, right? So that's Gemini's energy. But the other side of that is that they're very good at storytelling. They're great communicators. So again, this indicates that you should be ambitious and achieving through forms of communication. Imagine that. Uh, either your music and life coaching for that matter. Either of those is great for that. So then when we go around here, we have Cancer,
Okay.
okay? And Cancer is ruling your 11th house. Now, the 11th house is your social house. So you're kind of the mommy, for lack of a better term, with your social group, okay? So like you make sure everybody has their sunscreen.
Oh my God, I literally was just gonna say, does everyone have their SPF on? I was literally about to say that.
That, like, you know what I mean? You're like, I brought snacks. Like you're like their emotional support system for the outing. You know, you make sure everybody's there to have fun, and so are you. But you're just you're making sure everybody else is taken care of. That's the vibe from it. Now, the other part of that is you have Leo taking up a big portion of that house, so it doesn't rule it. But Leo is about adoration. Okay, so a lot of people confuse that with egotism because the sun rules Leo, and the sun is ego, right? But for the ego for Leos, really what it is when you hurt it, that it becomes an issue. They will never forget if you've hurt their ego. They'll forgive you, they just won't forget.
They'll write a breakup
Um,
song about you, like the one coming out on Friday.
oh, is that a Leo by chance? No, I'm just. um, but what's interesting is they're actually looking for adoration. So while you're being that social person and the social mommy of the group, if you will, you're like making sure everybody's got their stuff, and you're like, have you noticed that I brought all this for you? And now you get to have a better time because I brought it all? Thank you. That is the Leo energy, right? So that's the like, can you please adore me for the fact that I have just pampered you all?
Mm,
Right? Because Leos are very good at they want loyalty because they're very loyal, and they just want you to adore them and show them that you've noticed that they're doing things, not just because they exist, but because they've done something for you, like the perfect outfit for your outing, that kind of thing, you
right.
know? Not just like, oh, you're cute. Sure, they don't mind that, but like, but did you see the cake I made? You know, that kind of
Totally.
thing.
Whatever.
Now, Leo rules your 12th house. So you were also, when it comes to your intuition, you know when people are blowing smoke up your rear,
Mm,
right? Because, like I said, Leos, they're very forgiving, but they don't forget. So if somebody has hurt you in the past, or in some sort of way, or there's been a situation where you've been hurt in the past, you will be very protective of yourself in that case, and ferociously protective of other people that are starting to go through that same thing, because your intuition is going to help you understand whether it's okay or not. And once you've experienced it, you calculate that in there. So now you just want to help and make sure everybody's okay and that you're okay, and your intuition speaks to that. Now, that being said, the only placement that you have in the 12th house is actually in the sign of Virgo. So now we're back around to Virgo, right? Jupiter is the planet of expansion. So this is Jupiter right here, right? So it's also the planet of luck. So when it comes to your intuition and how you're like, you have that feeling from the Leo energy, well, Virgo is going to take it to the details. What happened last time? Okay, check, 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 right? But the more times you can line up that intuition that you have with your checklist, the more you're going to expand. The more information you're going to learn, the more lucky you're going to be, the more information will just come to you because you're cross-checking. You're like, not only do I have this idea or this creativity, but I can also back it up with receipts,
mm, yeah.
you know? So that's kind of what that means. That gives you that. Now let's talk about your aspects, okay?
Okay.
So let me turn them on. So behind me here, and for everybody else as well, you have these things in your chart called aspects. These are the lines that we see right here, okay? Some people will ask me, so I'll just say it now. There are things called chart patterns. Stellium, as an example, is one of them, okay? That's when you have three or more of these focus points involved. But aspects only need two, okay? So that's what we're going to talk about here is the aspects and the relationships. So there are five major aspects that we talk about in Western style Placidius and astrology in general. Um, and these five have different kind of energy to them. So we take your focus points and what they might be, and then we look at the line that's going between them, and we're like, oh, that's cooperative. that flows well. That's in conflict. Okay. That's literally what we see when we look at it. But when we break it down, you can look at something like, as an example, your Venus and Mars, which are basically on top of each other. This is called a conjunction. Okay. So it doesn't have a line, but conjunction is when you have points that are within 0 to 10 degrees of each other. And so
Mm.
that energy means that they're blended. So that means that your drive and your vulnerability are very blended together. So you have a lot of duality when it comes to that area, but that's like what we were talking about, where you have a partner that cooks and helps you with certain things that you struggle with, but at the same time, you get to be driven in the areas that you want to drive, right? So that's kind of what that means. Now, another one that we'll talk about is sextile. Okay. So sextile is 60 degrees away from each other. It's the purple lines. Okay. This energy is cooperative. So when you read it, you say, okay, well, in this case, your rising sign or your first impression is cooperating with how you're transforming. So it just gives you an indication of like, oh, okay, so it should be fairly easy for me to transform who I am as a person as long as I'm being honest with myself. Like that's what that one is, because that plays into the placements, like what sign they're under and all that, right? But it basically shows us like, hey, my first impression and my transition work well together. They cooperate. They're like besties, for
Mm.
lack of a better term, right? Now, the one that people associate with negativity the most is probably square, right? So that's the red line. They already make it a red line anyway to scare you, but it's 90 degrees, and it's
Okay.
not necessarily a bad thing. Okay. Now this is a pretty common one. Your MC and your rising being square, that's fairly common. Okay, because that's self and your ambition. But the difference is that it also can create friction that creates action. So
Mm.
you may find that you're very critical on yourself, and the Gemini is like, just talk about it already. And that's the conflict, right? So they can actually really help each other. Gemini can help that Virgo side open up, and Virgo can help Gemini shut the hell up sometimes,
Sure.
so they
Yeah.
can really help each other. And that's what can be indicated as a conflict, not necessarily a bad thing. All right.
Okay.
Now, there's trines, which are these green lines here. And these are usually in the same element. So there's 4 elements in astrology. There's fire, which is energy, earth, which is structure, air is intelligence, and water's emotion. Okay. So if they have the same kind of baseline emotion, intelligence, whatever that happens to be, they're going to have a good flow already because they're kind of in the same camp. But this includes different modes. There's 3 modes in astrology, which is cardinal. These are the initiators. They start the seasons like Libra, Capricorn, Cancer, and Aries. Okay. And then you have fixed ones, and those are the ones that take systems and adjust them. They're the adjusters. And then there are mutable signs, which are the bow tires. Okay. So that's why these are interesting to see. And part of the pattern that people talk about a lot, a grand trine, which if Brian doesn't have one in his chart with these placements on, but if you did, there would be another one here where it makes a triangle, right? And that's usually a talent. But the same thing goes for trines within your chart that aren't a grand trine. They indicate a talent, okay? So like how I was telling you about your Jupiter and the luck with Jupiter, you have it in Virgo, which is going to give you that detailed luck. And that is going to flow really well with your intuition and dreams and your initiation of structure for your intuition and dreams. Keeping the details is going to help that. Like they flow really well together. They're going to help each other grow and grow. All right. Now, the final one of the aspects is opposition. So this is an opposition right here. It's straight across, okay, 180 degrees, and that is push and pull energy. So kind of similar to a square, but not conflict so much as literally in competition with each other a little bit.
Mm.
So, one may win the day. So you might be going more for luck that day or maybe better communication. But the better communicator you are, the more luck you're going to get. And the more luck you have, the better communicator you'll become. Like, that's just kind of like how they help each other. One grows from the other. Otherwise, they might be stagnant and kind of stay there and not grow. So, yeah. And then I already talked to you about your waning gibbous moon. but it is creativity, imagination, a sense of reflection. So you're always looking for the truth. Is somebody who's born under that moon phase. So yeah, there's your chart.
Wow. I'm so
I know
grateful.
it's a lot.
It's a lot of information, but it's also like validating. I feel like so much of what you said really rings true to sort of like, you know, how I go about things, and also, I made a joke at the start, but being an independent artist, it's like sometimes you have a
Yeah.
lot of self doubt. There's that critical voice, right? So to have the
Mm-hmm.
chart so accurately say like, no, this is what you're supposed to be doing is always like validating and encouraging.
Yes, and it is. It's literally saying, please use your voice and communicate your stuff out to the world. It wants you to do that, you know?
Awesome. Well, I'm doing it this Friday, y'all. I've got a song.
Yeah.
Make sure you go check it out. It's called Just a Phase and references the moon, so hence the astrology.
Uh, uh.
Uh,
Yes, and I will put a link to your link tree on my link tree so everybody can go if you have problem accessing for some reason, or a link to the Spotify page at minimum so that people can go and get ready to download that, okay? So make sure you're over there following Brian and checking out his new country music stuff. As for me, if you want to get a reading, there is a link in my profile. I don't just read celebrities and reality stars, folks. I also read folks, regular folks like me. I'm a regular folk. um, so there's a link in my profile. It's my link tree to get a reading like this. And as Brian can tell you, when you get this reading, because this is what I do for other people as well, except for it's a personal chat instead of a live. Um, but I also give you a 7 page, at least, PDF that breaks all this down beforehand so that way when we're going through it you can kind of see what's going on, take notes and all that. So look that up as well. All right, folks. But yeah, so Brian, anything else you want to endorse or talk about before we go?
no, I just appreciate you sharing all your knowledge with me. I feel like this is so cool, and people should definitely do this with you. It's a cool experience. I have the PDF. I'm gonna text you if I have questions in the future. I didn't understand all the gifts that you were posting with my face. I was like, you were like, if you're an Earth sign, blah blah blah, blah you're tacky and I hate you, and I was like, I don't know what that means, but it looks like it's funny.
Yeah, I just took your that scene from School of Rock where you're like, you're techie and I hate you.
Yeah.
And I just did little means to kind of promote our live today, and I did each of those four elements. So, like, if you're an Earth sign, you would think that if somebody insulted like what you were doing, or like if you're an air sign, if somebody insults your intelligence, that was what you would say to them. You're
Uh,
tacky and I hate you.
that's
So
funny.
that's all. It was just for fun to promote us a
It
little
was
bit.
so cute. I loved it.
Yeah.
But no, I don't think there's anything else. People should follow me on TikTok. I'm kind of new here. I'm trying to make
Okay. Yeah.
a little presence, so come follow me. Lots of new music coming. And yeah, it was nice to hang out with you all. I enjoyed reading the comments below as well.
Yeah, that was cool. And I will post this on YouTube so that you can watch it whenever, because it's a longer video. So I'll make sure you post it up there. So if you missed part of it or you want to know more, you can go and watch that. All right. So stay tuned for that in the next couple of days. But Brian, thank you so much. Oh, sorry. Somebody said the link isn't working. I will fix it. I will go fix it. Give me 5 minutes or so. Okay. And I'll go fix that link. So thank you so much, Brian, for doing this. I really appreciate it. Go check out Brian's music. Everybody, stay safe. Take care of each other. I love all of you. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you. So, all right. Cheers.
Dad, thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you.